Hello, hello, and welcome to the next session. My name is Christine Corcoran, and I am tuning in all the way from Brisbane, Australia, and I'm super excited to be presenting this session with you today. I cannot wait to meet you all in the chat, so please make sure that you're jumping in the chat, asking questions, and let this be a beautiful interactive session. So let's talk all about your next level, how to become fearless in the pursuit of your dreams. You're in the right place if you've got big dreams, but you find yourself holding yourself back. Maybe you're self-sabotaging, you're hiding your brilliance, and you're getting stuck in a spiral of fear or self-doubt. You may want to change your relationship with fear, and I want you to know that this is the right place for you because we are going to do that with you today. So it's all about setting you up to become fearless in the pursuit of your dreams. Even if you're sick of letting fear or the imposter syndrome stop you from going after your dreams, today's session is going to help you do that with two powerful processes. So before we begin, please turn your phone on silent, grab a pen and paper. You are going to need it for this session, and to remove any distractions. If you can pop your headphones on and really open your mind to this session. We're going to be talking all about mindset and challenging your belief systems and challenging the way that you see fear and the relationship that you have with fear. So please allow me to expand your mind today. Your next level. This is what we are covering today. Your top 3 fears that hold everyone back from achieving next level results. How to uncover and overcome any fear, even the imposter syndrome, and the mindset you need to adopt to become fearless in the pursuit of your goals. So who am I? My name is Christine Corcoran. I'm a business mindset coach, and I'm qualified in neurolinguistic programming, matrix therapies, brain, and the study of human behavior. So what all of that means is that I'm so fascinated with the way that we tick, what drives us, what motivates us, and what helps us make transformational change. I love helping high-performing female entrepreneurs to own their worth, stop self-sabotaging their success, and step up in their leadership so they can skyrocket and supercharge their business. So are you ready for your next level of growth? Well, guess what? It's going to take a whole new version of you, and here's why. Every new level creates a whole new devil. So it's often a similar fear, but it shows up in new ways. And so to be able to overcome this at every stage of growth, and to be able to continue to go after those big dreams that you have and be fearless in the pursuit of those, we need to start to change our relationship with fear. Fear is going to hold us back. We are human beings. We have it. It's not going away. So let me help you overcome it. So what does fear mean to you? Sometimes it can mean F everything and run. We hide ourselves, we hold ourselves back, or you get to choose what you make it mean. It can mean for you, what it means for me is face everything and rise. The fear is the way. It is not here to leave. It's part of our human DNA. We have a fear response, which we're going to go through in just a moment. But ultimately, we get to choose what we make it mean. We can let it stop us, or we can let it be part of our growth that supports our expansion. So what is your fear response? We all have elements of these fear responses, but I want you to start to explore, what is your main fear response? What's your go-to, right? How do you give up on yourself? How do you stop yourself from moving forward? So which one do you listen to the most? Is it that you get caught up in the freeze frame, the whole, right? And we freeze and we avoid and we don't do anything? Is it that you run? You literally run in the other direction. You go end up doing 50 million other things except for the thing that you really want to do and you know that you should be doing? Or do you fight? Now, this shows up in a way that we get defensive, we get angry, we get frustrated, we get really annoyed with it. We blame other people, we blame the world, we blame, all the different challenges that are coming our way. Which one is it for you? And I want you to identify, because what we want to do is make sure that we're bringing as much awareness to this as possible, because with more awareness, we can change it, right? We can interrupt that pattern of fear and start to have a conversation with it and let it be something that we move through rather than it let us stop us. So which one is it for you? Pop it in the chat box. I really want to know. So I want you to know that fear shows up in really different ways. Now, everyone has a different response to their fear. So whether it can be, freeze, run, or fight. But often fear shows up anytime that we are taking non-action. Now, often we can avoid it and we go, oh, no, it's not fear stopping me. It's just that I have all these things, or I have all those things, or this is more important, right? But fear can show up in different ways. So I want you to start to identify how it's showing up for you at the moment. Is it that you're telling yourself that you're not ready? Right? We're often getting ready to be ready. We're doing all of the things in the preparation, but we're not actually doing the thing. Yeah? Maybe it's procrastination. Maybe we get caught up in the pattern, the habit of procrastinating, right? Or maybe it could be over consuming or over learning. This is where we go after the next qualification, because we believe we don't have enough knowledge, enough awareness, enough experience, right? We keep going and learning and consuming instead of actually taking the action. Maybe it's you're constantly putting barriers in front of yourself and in front of your success, right? This is where we create, or we overthink and we create too much work for ourselves before actually taking the action that we know is going to move the needle forward. Or maybe it's we are asking everybody else's opinion, waiting for the right answer before we take that next step. I had a friend that did this all the time. She would constantly look to everybody else for the answers, and she'd be asking everybody and serial polling everybody instead of actually listening within, because you know within yourself what you want to do and what you need to do. We just need to get the right mindset and help you change the relationship with fear so that you can move on it. You can take that next step. So where does fear even come from? Now, as part of our human DNA, our human brain, our prehistoric brain that we're walking around with, we have different parts of the brain. We have the amygdala, which is sitting down the bottom here. We have the amygdala where the fear response, the hormones of the fear response kick in. We have the subconscious mind, which is basically running in the background like your computer programming, which literally is just running the patterns of the computer programming, which we'll get into in a moment. And then we have the cortex, which is a prefrontal cortex in the front of the brain, which is where we think things through, where we create logic, where we want to problem solve, right? Where we get creative, where we learn things. This is where the active part of the brain starts to think things through. Now, the prefrontal cortex is not running the show, right? The subconscious mind is running the show 24/7. And it is running old patterns and old programming from the past that we've learned over our whole life experience. Now, the fear response that we need to be conscious of is that it is always on survival mode. And what I mean by that is that it is always on alert to see if we're in danger. Now, it's not activating the fear response just yet, right? It'll activate it once we have that alert come into play where the brain's like, oh, we're in danger, and the fear response then goes into action. Now, the danger part could come in from a place of, or we're about to be judged, or we could be judged, right? And so the fear response kicks in and stops us. That's where the fight, the run, or the freeze comes into play. So how does this work in the brain? We need to understand it in order to override it. So if our brain is always on alert, it is our five senses are always activated in order to see whether we're in danger. It's looking to every part of our environment to see if we're in danger, okay? So it's designed to keep us alive. It's going to preserve energy, and the way that it does that is by running old programs, right? It's literally running the same old pattern it's always run 24/7 in order to keep us safe. Now, how does it determine if we're safe? It determines safety through certainty. So with everything that it's looking for in our environment, it's looking to see familiarity. It's looking to see whether we're certain that we're going to survive. Has this happened before? The brain filters it through all of our past experiences to see if it's happened before. And if it has, if it feels somewhat familiar to some past experience, your brain will feed you information from the past to go, oh, hang on a minute, this has happened in the past. Maybe you shouldn't do this. Or hang on a minute, you've touched a hot pot before and you burnt yourself, so maybe don't touch that hot pot, right? Like it's actually activating that part of the brain to see if we're safe through elements of certainty. Now, it needs evidence from the past to determine that level of certainty. And so if there's something that you're wanting to do that you've never done before, your brain is filtering through those filters to see if you've done it before, to see if you feel safe. Now, if you've never done it before, it activates the fear of the unknown. So we go into a state of fear to go, oh, hang on a minute, we've never done this before. What could happen? Could I die? Could I be judged? Could I be, hurt? Like what's going to happen here? And then our fight or flight response kicks in. Now, we need to be able to override that to go, well, hang on a minute. I understand that that's normal from our brain. It just wants to keep us safe. It just wants to protect us. So first we need to have much more awareness around what is causing this fear. So we want to question it. When the fear rises, we're going to go, what is this fear? Why am I having it? So let's talk about the top 3 fears that are currently will hold a lot of us back, right? And I want you to identify which one is it most for you. Now, we will have aspects of all of this, but I want you to start to identify for you right now, for you to pursue your dreams with fearless abandon. I want you to start to figure out which one is the one that's holding you back the most, because we're going to be taking this through my fear analysis process. So you want to identify which one. And again, your brain's going to be like, oh my God, I have all of these, but I want you to go, which one's the biggest? Which one's the most emotionally charged for you? So let's go through them. The first one is the fear of success. This is where we feel like we worry about it's all going to be taken away. We fear that maybe we won't be able to handle that level of success. We won't know what that's going to mean about us. We may fear the responsibility. We may fear the hard work that's going to go into it. We may fear that we may lose our anonymity, right? If we start to put ourselves out there more. Maybe we have a fear of who we'd have to become in the pursuit of that success. We worry about that because of the evidence that we have of other people getting to certain levels and then them being affected by that level of success. Or it's the fear of the unknown. So we go, well, we've never done this before. Oh my goodness, I go into a state of fear. So that's the fear of success. Now, a lot of people think they have a fear of failure, but as I go through this, they now realize that it's actually the fear of success. So let's see if that's happening for you. Let me know in the chat box. Fear of failure. Let's explore this one. This is where we fear being seen as a failure. Maybe we fear of getting it wrong, which is where the perfectionism comes into play. Maybe we fear we're being judged for looking stupid or looking like an idiot. Now that can be underlying belief systems based on childhood experiences where maybe we did get it wrong and mistakes weren't okay in our household, right? When we were growing up, or maybe it was not okay to make mistakes in the school system, right? How often did that happen? And if it was painful enough from the past, it can show up as a fear right now. Or this is where number 4 comes into play, that avoiding the pain of past experiences. So if we've had a failure in the past and that was really traumatic, or if it was really painful, we don't want to relive that, right? Our brain wants to protect us from that, so we don't want to relive that. So I've previously had a client that had a bankruptcy in her past, and so she started a new business, and then she had this big fear of it all going to that to bankrupting again, right? So she's stressed and worried about it constantly. And I want you to know that as we are exploring these fears are actually stopping you right now, even though you haven't done the thing, even though you haven't achieved that level of success or actually put the thing out there, right, that you're worried about failing on. It is still stopping you right here, right now. This is why it's so important that we uncover this to change your relationship with this fear so we can move through it. So is it that pain of avoiding past experiences? The last one here is fear of judgment or rejection. Now, this is where we may fear what people may say or even what they might think of us. The fear of being seen, of, being judged for what you look like, what you sound like all of those types of fears around that level of judgment. Maybe it's the fear of being rejected completely, where we go like cancel culture, or we go into like, oh, what if people don't like me? What if people, say no and they don't want to work with me, or they don't want to support my dreams? Maybe it's the fear of self-promotion, right? That we don't want to be seen as being salesy or pushy, right? Or it could be the fear of the repercussions of the success, right? So we go, well, I don't fear the actual success piece, but I do actually feel like what might happen if I do get there? And will I be ostracized from my community? Will I be judged because maybe my family judged other successful people when I was a kid? And I don't want to be ostracized from my family unit because that's super important to me, right? So when we start to uncover this, it's like, which one of these is really blocking you from stepping into that next level of success and going after your dreams in a big way? So I want you to identify, is it success, failure, or fear of judgment or rejection? Pop it in the chat box and let me know. So I'm going to go through these a little bit more in depth as well. So if you're still unsure, I'm going to explore these a little bit further. So how do we overcome the fear of failure? Firstly, we want to obviously analyze this fear of what really we're worried about happening, which I'm going to take you through a process in just a moment. Firstly, we want to look at healing the past. So if it is a past experience where you've experienced failure in the past, it's important to reflect on that. Even though it feels painful, we want to reflect on it to find resolution in order to heal that part of ourselves so it doesn't get triggered and reactivated for the future. Secondly, we want to reframe what failure means. Failure doesn't even exist, right? It's the meaning we're placing on it. It's the belief systems that we have about that. So what if you changed it to that actually every time I fail, it's a stepping stone that's getting me closer to success. That maybe that I'm going to learn so much in the pursuit of what I want that I'm going to become a whole new version of me, right? And that maybe actually there's no such thing as failure. I only fail if I don't try, right? There's so many more meanings that you can place on failure. It doesn't have to mean that it is as bad as you think it is, right? It's just the belief that you've placed on it. And then the last one here is learn to reparent yourself. So if you've had past experiences as a kid where it was not okay to make mistakes, where you were judged for whatever it is that you were going after, we want to start and be kind to ourselves, because ultimately that wound is that inner child is being reactivated and it's driving a lot of our behavior. So we want to keep that child really safe by not taking any action, right? So what we want to do is learn to reparent ourselves and develop a really kind and compassionate way that we speak to ourselves and to speak to that inner child, and start to be the cheerleader that supports us, right? That it's no such thing as failure. We're going to keep going. It's okay to make mistakes. It's how you learn, right? We need to make mistakes, otherwise we don't learn. We stay doing exactly the same thing we're doing right now. Okay, so don't think about, this is one of my favorite quotes, don't think about the possibilities of failing. Never forget to think about the possibilities of flying. Right? We're focused on the wrong thing. When we're focused on failing, we will always be focused on failing, which will cause us to fail even more. It causes us to make even more mistakes. What if we focused on what was possible rather than failure? So this is really fascinating to me, that the actual term fear of success is achievophobia. Which is really fascinating. So the fear of not being able to handle the fame, responsibility, the hard work, the money, the accomplishment of success. And a lot of women really struggle with the fear of success compared to men, because of the constant society messages of us that it's okay for men to succeed, but for women to succeed, they're seen to then be torn down, or that it's not okay to have all of the things, right? So we judge them, and that society judges them for being successful. So we want to move through this, because the only way that we're going to change that is to start to change the conversation that we're having about it. So what causes the fear of success? The fear of success can come from a lack of belief in our ability to handle the success, right? I want you to get that clear. Not about your ability, but your belief in yourself in being able to overcome or handle that level of success. And this is the fear of the unknown, right? It's like, if you've never done it before, how do you know if you're going to be able to handle it or not? And I'm going to share a tool with you of how we overcome this. The second one is maybe we have lack of evidence from the past, or positive representation in the present. So if what you're going after in the present moment, there's no representation of that in your everyday world. So maybe it's people around you have never achieved that level of success. Maybe you don't even have a role model that you follow online that has achieved that level of success. So the brain goes into a state of, we don't know if we're going to be safe. There's uncertainty here. So that's where the fear gets activated, right? So we want to find a role model. We want to find representation in your world that's safe for you to be able to go after that. And then if you were to achieve it, you would be okay, right? So we want to develop as much certainty around that outcome as possible. Maybe we have a lack of belief in our skills or abilities. That's what causes that fear of success. So we worry about being found out, right? The imposter syndrome starts to play out, being found out that we don't know what we're talking about, being found out that it's all just actually not true, like all of this stuff. We're not as good as we think we are, like all of this stuff comes up to play. It could be caused by a lack of self-worth, or even limiting money beliefs, right? So if we have belief systems around rich people or successful people, if we have belief systems around certain levels of income and whether we'd be able to handle that amount of money, right? If we have a bad relationship with money already, that can then be impacted with our fear of success. So first thing to overcome the fear of success is defining what success means to you, right? Often we can adopt the successful definition of society, right? You have to have the house, the car, the luxury items, the handbags, the traveling overseas, like all of those images that we see portrayed across social media. But ultimately you want to get clear on what you want, right? Because it's not necessarily those things. For success to you may mean being able to be there to pick up the kids from school and drop the kids off each day and have work that you enjoy, right? Success is different to everybody. So getting clear on what success means to you. Develop a clear picture of what it looks like, what it would feel like, what it would sound like, what it would be like for you. And find a positive role model that represents that level of success in a positive way that really connects to your values, right? One of the things that I did when I first started out was find a role model that really represented the ethical way of coaching. As a coach, there was lots of different representations in the industry at the time, and I wanted to find someone that was really ethical in what they did, was really positive in the way that they handled their money, that it wasn't about being flashy, it wasn't about having all of those luxury things, it was just about being real but also giving back. And so for me, one of my favorite role models is Sarah Blakely from Spanx, because the way that she interacts with people, the way that she's so genuine, the way that she gives back to her team, the way that she celebrates her friends and takes them all out on a yacht. Like she has fun with her money, but it's also about creating community and supporting others as well on the way. So find something that's really important to you and find someone that represents those values, and you'll find that you will develop this new level of evidence that your brain's looking for to go, it's okay if we get to that level. So let's take this through the fear analysis. So to do this, I want you to identify which one do you feel. Now, I didn't have a chance to go through all of them because I really wanted to get through these processes. So which one do you feel is really impacting you at the moment? Fear of success, fear of failure, or the fear of judgment or rejection? So with your fear, I want you to first identify, what are you most worried about happening in relation to that fear? Okay, this is the first step. I want you to write it down. So get your pen and paper and write down fear of success, fear of failure, whichever one it is for you. And then in relation to that fear, what are you most worried about happening? Now I'm going to use an example so it makes sense to you. Let's say, so I have a past client I can think of right now where she had a huge fear of judgment. So she was wanting to sell this incredible membership and she was stepping forward into it, and she really worried about being salesy and pushy, and she feared the judgment that would come along with that. Okay? And so then what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask you, what I asked her to do is to play out the whole movie. Because what happens is majority of the time our brain goes into a state of fear and we stop thinking about what that situation would be and how we would handle it, because we're literally just stopped with the fear. So we want to move past that fear by playing out the whole movie. So let's take that fear that you identified and go, what's the one thing that you're most worried about happening? So I asked her, with that judgment, what's the one thing that you're most worried about happening? And she was like, well, people would say that I would be salesy and pushy. I'm like, okay, great. Okay, so I want you to write that down, and we want to play out the whole entire movie. So let's say that actually did happen. Okay, I'm not saying let's not manifest it, but let's not saying that's going to happen, but we need to figure out how we're going to handle it. Okay, so let's say that that exact thing happened. So you went out there, you started promoting yourself, you started promoting your membership, you started getting these incredible people saying yes to you and coming to you. And then someone said, you're being a bit salesy, right? And that judgment came. I want you to think about, how would you handle that? So that's the next step. Get really clear on how you would specifically handle, write it down, create your action plan. What are your action steps to actually handle it? Now for her, she was like, I'd probably say, thanks for your feedback, and realize that maybe she's not the right fit for the membership anyway. So the judgment was coming from someone that really didn't matter, and just keep selling it in because I really believe in this and I really think that this will be really good for people. I was like, isn't that interesting? Right? Now let me give you another example. So with that client that I was saying to you earlier about how she had the bankruptcy in her past and she had the fear of failing again, I asked her, let's play out the whole movie. You step into this new business, you go gung-ho, you literally believe in yourself and you go after it because you're so passionate about it and you really want it to succeed. And for some reason, it doesn't happen and it flops and it fails. What would you do next? And she was like, I'd probably cry about it. I'd probably like crawl into bed and hide. And I'm like, yeah, great. Okay, so maybe you would do that. Okay, but how long would you do that for? And she was like, I don't know, maybe you'd get upset for maybe a couple of days, maybe. And I'm like, okay, and then what would you do? And she was like, I'd probably close out the business and whatever, finish up what I need to finish up, and then take a break. I'm like, great. And then what would you do? And she's like, I'd probably just go find something I'm really passionate about and pursue that. I'm like, great, right? So I want you to keep asking yourself, and then what, and then what, and then what, until you get to that point of resolution where you acknowledge that, hang on a minute, I could handle that. Yeah? So follow it out, detail out those action steps. The next step is thinking, how would you prevent that from happening? Because I don't want it to happen to you, but let's create an action plan, because we want to create as much certainty as possible so your brain feels safe. How would you prevent this from happening? If you're worried about it happening, how would you prevent it from happening? Yeah, so My client with the bankruptcy, she has been through it. She knows exactly what red flags to be aware of. And she was like, oh, I know exactly how I'd prevent it. I would make sure that I'm checking in with myself every single month of what I'm focusing on and where I'm spending my time and where my money is being spent, right? I would make sure that the client that I'm working with is the right fit for me, right? Like she had such ample amount of information on how she would prevent it from happening that once we went through that, she was like, oh, I know exactly what to do now, and I'm not even scared about it, because even if it did happen, one, I would be fine, and two, I would get over it, and three, I'm pretty much going to make sure that doesn't happen again. Yeah, so often we get so stuck in just the fear of it happening that we don't think about how we would actually handle it. So create that prevention plan, and then check in with yourself and think, well, how do you feel about that fear now? Often at this point it dissipates, or you need to take a step further and say, well, can I find peace with that happening? And often, majority of the time, the response is yes. Now, if you feel like we've gotten to this stage and your fear hasn't subsided or at least decreased, I want you to go back to the beginning again and detail that fear even more. So what are you most worried about happening? You may need to keep asking yourself that question a couple of times to really get to a deeper level fear. Because if it hasn't dissipated, you haven't uncovered it deep enough, okay? So keep asking yourself in order to go to that next level of the fear. Awesome. Let me know what you think about this fear analysis. Obviously, you most likely will get the recording to this, so you can go back and do this as many times as you need to in order to overcome any fear that comes up. So I'm going to share with you one more tool to help you overcome the fear, even like the imposter syndrome. And I want you to know that you are so much more capable than you give yourself credit for. So stop underestimating your ability and remind yourself that you can handle anything that comes your way. And this is a beautiful process about being able to do that. The imposter syndrome is a persistent inability to believe that one's success is deserved or has been legitimately achieved as a result of one's own efforts or skills. So the two key words you need to be conscious of here are believe, right? We've got to believe that one's success is deserved. So they're the two key pieces. One, what's a belief anyway? A belief is a thought that we've thought many, many times. So we get to change the belief that we have about it. And two, deserved. What makes someone more or less deserving of their success? Nothing, right? So often what we do is we actually derail ourselves before, and again, it's just a form of fear. So when we start to identify it as just a form of fear, we can, one, uncover why we're fearing it, and then create some more evidence to feel safe to move forward and take that to the next step. So when does the imposter syndrome show up for you? Let me know in the chat box. Is it when you're learning something new? So maybe you're taking on a new role, attempting to do something you've never done before, or maybe it's when you are, literally learning something and you're putting yourself back in the beginner's seat. So we don't know what we're doing, right? Maybe it's a new level of achievement. So we're maybe stepping into doing something we've never done before and we're achieving these things and we're hitting these milestones and we're winning awards or up leveling in some way and feel like we don't deserve it, right? Or we're not acknowledging the work that we've done to get there. So we feel like the imposter syndrome comes up and says, oh no, who do you think you are, right? You don't deserve this. People aren't going to believe you've done this, right? All those belief systems and thought patterns and self-talk come into play. Maybe it's when you're hitting a new level of income, right? When we hit that new level of income and it starts to come with the unknown of like, oh my goodness, I've never done this before. What's going to happen? People are going to think I'm, being boastful with their money, or maybe they're judging me. And it creates even more fear. Maybe it's new situations. So we're putting ourselves out there and we're maybe meeting other talented people. I know this has happened for me when I've been in a room of incredible people and I'm like, oh, who am I to be here, right? I don't belong here. So we start to doubt ourselves. And this is where the imposter syndrome plays up. Maybe we're launching something new and we're like, oh, who am I to talk about this? What do I know, right? Or maybe it's we're speaking on a new topic or we're challenging ourselves to do something new we've never done before. And the last little one here is the inability to celebrate our successes. Now, this is actually a symptom I see with a lot of high achievers and a lot of women in business that really think that they're just lucky, right? And this is where if we struggle to stop and actually acknowledge our success, it's actually perpetuating the imposter syndrome. So what we want to do is we want to stop and acknowledge and take the time to actually go, well, yeah, I created that, and celebrate your success in order to develop your level of self-worth and self-belief so then the imposter syndrome is no longer an issue. So, what causes the imposter syndrome? Again, it's very similar to some of the other belief systems, the other fears around lack of self belief, lack of belief in our abilities or skills, lack of evidence from the past, or maybe we have a fear of the unknown, rejection, or judgment. So, who do you think you are? Now, where are these belief systems coming from, and why do we have that self talk? And it comes from the evidence, right? The evidence that our brain has of what we believe is true about us. So we have an identity. So our brain develops these levels of belief systems that create this image, right? This picture of who you are. Now, your identity is made up of your belief systems about who you are, your past experiences, your memories, your childhood, your upbringing, your schooling and education, maybe your religion or faith, your culture, your values of what's really important to you, which are often handed down to you from your family, your hopes and your dreams, and also what other people think of us, right? So if someone's ever said to you, oh, you're really good at that, it activates that part of the brain that goes, oh, well, that must be true for us. If someone has said that and they're an authority in our lives or they're important to us, we will take that on board as true, because if they've said it, it must be true. So we develop this identity of who we believe we are. Now, if we don't take the time to stop and acknowledge what we've learned, what we've overcome, what we've, educated ourselves on, what we've taken the time to actually develop or master, then that belief isn't there, right? So often we're actually just living from the past of what evidence is banked in our brain. But if we don't take the time to acknowledge it, our brain doesn't bank it. So how do we overcome this? Because we're literally always living from the past. So unless we make a conscious decision to live from the future, we will always be caught up in fear and doubt based on what evidence is from the past. Because, right, if you're stepping in to do something new you've never done before and you don't have evidence from the past that you're going to do it, how do you feel confident in taking that next step? You feel confident with being able to back yourself no matter what, that no matter what happens, you've got you, right? And you can back yourself and have the belief in yourself that you'll be able to handle anything. So I want to help you strengthen that belief in yourself by taking you through a little process that's going to support you in being able to overcome the imposter syndrome. And it's my favorite tool of thinking from the future. So what I would love for you to do is take a moment now, and I want you to pop anything out of your hands, and I want you to sit back into your seat, and I want you to take a couple of big deep breaths just to ground yourself. And exhale. Another big deep breath in. And as you exhale, just blink your eyes a couple of times and allow them to close. We need your eyes to close so then we can access the subconscious mind. Now, this is not a deep process at all. It's just a beautiful visualization that'll help you step into your future self shoes in order to help you overcome the imposter syndrome. So what I would love for you to do is I want you to take a moment now, and I want you to float out into the future, and I want you to imagine that you have created and achieved everything that you wanted to achieve. So those big dreams, those big goals that you have, what image in your mind could represent that reality, that goal becoming a reality? And I want you to sit as if you're watching yourself in a movie theater, and I want you to watch it on the movie screen. And I want you to play it out like a movie of you achieving those goals. So you can see yourself on that movie screen. And I want you to play it out exactly the way you want it to go. Taking the action, putting yourself out there, challenging yourself, overcoming obstacles, proving to yourself that you can do it. And I want you to watch yourself from the beginning to the end of that movie. And I want you to see how that's playing out for you. And I want you to see how you're talking to yourself, how you're talking to other people, how you're celebrating your successes, how you're saying, yeah, look, I did that. That was me. Wow, I never thought this was possible, and look, this is what I've created. And I want you to play that movie all the way to the end. And then let's go back to the beginning again. So rewind it all the way back to the beginning. And this time I want you to stand a little bit closer. Stand a little bit closer as if you're in the movie now, but you're still watching you. So you're still watching your future self taking that action, showing up and speaking with confidence, going after that thing, speaking up for yourself, challenging yourself and moving through that fear even though it feels uncomfortable. And I want you to stand close enough that you can almost see yourself breathing. You can feel what it feels like to be in the energy of your future self as she continues to take that massive action and move through the fear and doubt and imposter syndrome. Because it's there. She just doesn't let it stop her. And continue to watch the movie. And I want you to see how she's talking to herself. I want you to see how she's speaking to others, how she's holding herself, how she's breathing, the beat of her heart. And I want you to play out it all the way to the end and see how she's feeling with that achievement. And I want you to rewind it one more time. Let's do it again, one more time. So rewind it all the way to the beginning. And this time, I want you to step into that and follow her every step of the way, as if you're following her every action. Yeah? See what she sees, as if you're looking through her eyes. See what she's creating. See how she's feeling every step of the way. And continue to play that movie all the way to the end. And now this time I want you to follow your future self out of the movie screen scene and into a place where you feel safe to talk. And we're going to ask your future self a couple of questions. And you'll remember the answers. And as you are on mute here, you can answer out loud if you need to. It's really powerful if you allow yourself to answer out loud. So I'll ask the questions and let your future self answer. So looking into your future self eyes, and if you want to hold her hands, I want you to see her for who she truly is. And I want you to ask her this question. How did you create this reality? What attitude did you adopt in order to achieve this success? What did you learn about yourself? What did you need to believe about yourself in order to take this action? What action steps were the most important? And what did you need to value in order to take these actions? What was important to you? And now as you're standing there with her receiving this incredible wisdom, I want you to see a beautiful white light coming down from the universe. This beautiful white light is coming down from the universe in through the top of her head and filling her up until she's totally whole and complete. And as it fills her up, it overflows out of her heart and into your heart and transfers across all of these incredible resources. Her confidence, her strength, her resilience, her tenacity, her sassiness. It transfers all across to you and fills you up with this incredible white light until you feel completely whole, confident, strengthened, resilient. And now thank you for your future self for these incredible gifts. And take a moment now to float all the way back down into your seat right now. And in a moment, I'm going to ask you to open your eyes, grab a pen and paper, and write down this incredible wisdom. That's right. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes and write down, who did you need to become in order to achieve that level of success? So I'll have the questions here on the screen, which I asked your future self. So if you want to make some notes about that incredible wisdom that she gave you and the resources that she shared with you, take a moment now to do that. Okay. Now share with me in the chat your experience with this. I would love to hear from you. Tell me, how was that for you? What did you learn? And if there's any of those pieces of wisdom that you would love to share, because everyone loves to, get so much out of this. When I do this activity with my clients or with any other masterclasses, by sharing it in the chat box, you are sharing that wisdom with other people because we are all part of this together. So share that in the chat box. So what wisdom did she have? And I want you to ask yourself, was she fearless? She wasn't, right? She still had the fear, but she took action in spite of the fear, didn't she? I know she did. So, this is where we need to start shifting and changing your relationship with fear. These are two beautiful, incredible tools that you can use by playing out the whole movie, see how you will create that action plan to handle that challenge or that fear, and then create that prevention plan. And then step into your future self shoes and embody that energy, that confidence, that strength, that wisdom, right? Embody all of those resources and then take the action in spite of the fear. Oh, so good. Loving all of these answers. Make sure you continue to share them with me. I'm going to be in the chat box and I'll answer those as well. So if you have any questions, feel free to pop them in the chat box. So the last little piece here I want to share with you, the mindset that you can adopt to become this fearless person and to be able to step into those future self shoes to pursue your goals with absolute fearless abandon. I love to explore the growth mindset. So when we're fixed and we're in a fixed mindset where we feel immovable, right? We feel like we don't have any options. So we want to adopt a new mindset that's going to help us feel abundant and to feel like we're stepping into our growth zone. So these are some of the belief systems that I like to adopt in order to have this growth mindset. I am worthy of receiving more. There's no one less deserving than me. Challenges are a part of the journey. It's how I grow to the next level. There is no competition. There is more than enough to go around. My fear is my friend. I don't let it stop me. There is no such thing as failure, only lessons. Where my focus goes, energy flows. Obstacles are lessons and growth in disguise. I'm worthy of taking up space. I'm willing to be seen. And money is an amplifier. Let me know which one of these you like the best. Feel free to screenshot this and keep it on your phone saver because it helps you to then re-embed those belief systems the more you read them. I want you to embrace fear. Fear is not a bad thing. It doesn't have to stop you. It's going to be part of your journey. So let it be your guide to grow you and expand you. Get comfortable with being uncomfortable and notice that, if you're getting too comfortable, maybe that's because it's time to get uncomfortable. You're not challenging yourself enough, right? And then come and share with me, what did you take away from this? I'd love for you to connect with me over on Instagram. I hang out there the most. I'm also on Facebook and LinkedIn. You can find me the same thing, Christine_Corcoran_coach. And I'd love to hear your takeaways from today's session. You can also learn more from me via my podcast, which is called the Next Level Life Podcast. You can find it anywhere you get your podcasts, Spotify, iTunes, all of the places. So I'd love for you to continue to chat with me in the chat box afterwards. I'm going to stick around a little bit longer, but I want you to know and end on this note. You are so much more capable than you're giving yourself credit for. Stop limiting yourself. You're already worthy. You were born worthy. Your dreams are your dreams for a reason. Go after them. Thank you so much for joining me, and I hope to see you as part of the rest of the summit. So for those of you who have joined as part of the All Access Pass, you will also get access to my Next Level Masterclass series where I dive into all of this so much deeper. So I take you through how to step into your self-leadership, how to increase your visibility and feel comfortable with being seen, help you elevate your level of worthiness and money mindset, and help you step into execution and increasing your energy so you don't burn out. Feel free if you'd like to get access to this as part of the All Access Pass.